Thank you all for staying. This will be the last panel discussion for today, and we are having this exciting topic of accelerating growth for early stage projects. Today we have 6 prominent panelists. They are Nicole, head of APAC of Infinity Blockchain Venture, and Yong, head of advisory at Kenetic Capital. Yong, Andy, investment manager of Node Capital. Elon, CEO and founder of RedNova. Phuong, partner of AlphaWell investment fund. And lastly, Emma, CEO of LongHash. Let's welcome them. Okay, so the topic of this panel discussion will be focusing on the community growth as well as the development of projects. As you all know, the number of blockchain projects has been increasing rapidly recent years. Maybe some of you have to read at least 10 white papers every day. Unfortunately, 90% of these projects fall in the first year. What are your thoughts on this? And do you think projects should grow fast or they should keep it slow and carefully?
Hi, I'm John with Kenetic. I run advisory. I guess the short answer to that is, well, there's 2 questions. I'll tackle the second one, actually. I actually think that companies should focus on focusing as opposed to trying to do too many things at once. I think a lot of companies are trying to create competitive beachheads, create advantages by saying that they do many, many things, but they don't necessarily do any one thing very well. I think the projects that are most successful are the ones who are very good at what they do, and as a result can form terrific partnerships with other projects that do other things, and so they're complementary.
So your advice for the project teams will be for them to keep focused, right? Okay.
Hi, I'm Elon from RedNova. You're right, 90% of the token of the projects fall in first year, but actually they're saying that 99.9% of the project currently in the market, they might go to zero if the market is really crashed down. Then recently we have some projects really goes to zero. It's not our projects. I mean, when the Bitcoins really goes down, but just now, as our Jeffrey mentioned that there's 2 types of coin, Bitcoin and other coins. So everybody wants to be Bitcoins, but who can be really the decentralized and you have the big hearts to do the big projects. So as our roles to incubate the projects and be like IB investment banking for the crypto, we have to do the due diligence for our projects, for our investors. Like just now, panelists said that we have to respect our investors. So this new industry just started. So we have to do our job and make sure our projects don't fall in first year and we have our reputation.
I am from Node Capital. I want to answer the first question. You mentioned that the death rate for early stage projects is very high. I think even in the classical venture capital, the death rate is also very high, and the early stage projects cannot survive in most cases in 2 years. So it's ordinary. The cost of trying is inevitable for final success from the perspective from the whole society. And secondly, I think the high death rate, it means the market is learning very quickly because the new things emerge, new technology and new business models are being adopted. So we abandon outdated business model and technology. So I think the high death rate reflects the marketing is refreshing itself very quickly. So I think it's a very good phenomenon.
Does that mean the projects has to develop very fast in order to keep keep with the speed of the development of this whole industry?
I think we should maintain a balance. The speed is very important because many projects they choose to do PR before the mainnet comes out, and if you choose to do PR after the mainnet comes out, then you might be outdated. So fast is very important, and I think it is more important than the latter. Okay.
I see. Very insightful.
Hi, this is Emma from LongHash. I think it's a very interesting question. I feel for blockchain projects, they are already being speed up a lot compared to your traditional startups. And because of the avenue of ICO, you get funding, a lot of funding, and very early stage, even when you just have an idea. So that itself helps to increase the odds of success for a lot of projects. But then I think a lot of projects needs to be very, and fast itself is relative as well, right? So and I think whether you define a project successful or not, a lot of people think, oh, these projects have raised 20 million, hence it's successful, even before we see the product itself, right? So I think you have to broaden the horizon, look at the longer term, whether a project is successful or not. Maybe it has raised a lot of money right now, but whether the project will be able to deliver a year or 2 years down the road is a different story.
Hi, I'm Hillary, come from AlphaWell Investment Fund. As you mentioned, we have to read a lot of white paper every single day, and I have to meet a lot of founders team and have to see whether they have the capability to actually deliver the projects. So most of the project right now, I felt that they have been involved in many different projects by themselves. Like this person can be in this ICO, another project, and they cannot focus on whatever they want to deliver. It seems to me like if I see that particular team member appear in many other projects, it seems like, oh, there must be something wrong over here. Then secondly, because of the market changing, and also in downtrend very long time, and then there will be only 4 months. For example, like last year, they have been spike up, and people think they're doing fundraising for the project in blockchains easily, but the main point is like how you say, you have to know, you have to see whether the project can deliver whatever they promised for the past few months. And as well, for the regulations have been changing. So in different countries, the regulations are different. Especially, for example, in the Southeast Asia, there is no regulations specifically to this area, and the project itself have to adopt and also changing, in certain time period for them to actually make the project successful. And another point is when you mention about whether you want to grow fast or you grow slow, I think I'm quite a little bit of like different from your idea. I think the project itself has to be stably developed. Even because when the technology changed, right now we already have like blockchain 3.0. So it has changing only about 3 months. It is so many technology have been outdated. And then if you keep changing and you try to run very fast, or whereby your products is harder for you to, your products and your community is harder for you to manage. So it's very important for the project itself have to be constantly and carefully grow. Yeah, so this is my
Very thorough analysis.
Hi everyone. So I think where I was coming from might be a bit different from our panelists in here. I started as a community builder, so not as an angel investor or as a capital, as a venture capitalist. So my company IBL, my previous company IBL, is a R&D company. So we are the largest R&D hub in Vietnam, and recently we have come up with an initiative that we will open an incubation and consulting firm in Thailand to expand our investment arm and our incubation program for startups, because we've seen this gap in the market and we would like to leverage on what we've got in terms of engineering and development resources. So what I mean by, like a different background here is that I think the question would come, I mean, if we take a step back, I do agree with the panelists in the last panel that if we take out the blockchain, then the business is a business. So at the end of the day, if the problem statement is not sharp and it's not viable from the beginning, then whatever you do, either you add AI, either you add blockchain in the picture, that's not really help. I think the core value in here is it should be about the relevance. Is it about the matching of supply and demand? Is it about the matching of problem and solution? Would matter most in this case. For instance, with AI or either with location-based advertisement, it has been there for 10 years. But only until now that we can see that those applications can really, strike, can really bring about, impacts and really bring about different businesses in the market. So it should be about the timing. It doesn't mean that going fast is good enough. It should be about how relevant you are with the market and with the market demands. So I guess that would be what I think from the community perspective. So given that the technology, especially with blockchain, it is being accelerated by a lot of things, by the 3G generation, by a lot of other supporting technologies. I mean that with blockchain, things are moving faster than usual, but it doesn't mean that we should take out the fundamentals when we evaluate any kind of business.
So can you share with us, are there any specific criteria you will be looking for when you read the white papers?
Honestly, I don't have that much experience with white papers. To be honest, I'm not a technical person. So basically, I would need a lot of support from my technical team just to test if the idea is really viable. But I think one of the key thing, just as I mentioned, whether the solution is relevant to the problem, because somehow a lot of white papers, as I found out, I mean the problem at the beginning is not right. And blockchain is said to be like a technology that is seeking problem, meaning that if you follow this kind of cycle, and at the end of the day, you don't have a clear solution, you don't have a clear problem, then basically you cannot really explain your business, in let's say within a white paper, even within like a massive business plan. So I mean that I would just look at the fundamentals, how they are addressing that, and the roadmap, which is also very important, how you're going to commit and how you're going to do that within your business plan.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think at the end of the day, I think you should basically look at, is there a real problem that has to be solved with blockchain as compared to the existing technologies that's out there, rather than yesterday you were doing a business and today you pivot to blockchain just because that's the buzzword out there, right? You're not solving a real problem. You're just trying to, plant the concept of blockchain into this. So I think ultimately you have to ask yourself, if I remove blockchain from this solution, does it still work?
I see. Any other people wants to add some points?
I think there are two things I would like to add on for the requirements, and it's also the points that I will look for the white paper. So first, it will be whether this white paper or this project actually solve something related to blockchain industry and how and or apply blockchain in some certain industry or their business, existing business, or they just plainly raising fund. Yeah. Secondly, with the perspective of the funds, we're looking for the token economy from the project itself, whether it's relevant and whether it's really the founder team really understand how to allocate the money that they try to raising for.
Okay, Elon.
Yeah. For the white paper, myself is I was an engineer. I was trained in Germany. I was a banker, so I understand a little bit about finance and engineer. But when I look at white paper, the first thing, like previous panel discussed about that, we look at the people. We invest in the money, actually, or investing on teams. So if the people are solid, the money that they're raising, sometimes it's like humanity. When you suddenly you receive roughly about $30 million or $40 million, it's really taste of. I mean, can you imagine that in one night you receive $50 million, where you still be the same you? That's a taste for your life. So if the team of the founder, of the CEO, whoever or scientist, they can bear with all these kind of challenges. So then they really the lover and believer for this technology going to change the world or make this world a better place. So they will invest all this money to develop the technology that going to develop. But if we are looking at techniques, and I can't comment too much on the white paper and how it's going to. I mean, if the technical is really strong, it's sometimes the white paper is 60 pages. How I finish 60 pages thesis in one night, it's not responsible for doing that. So normally we look at people, and like previously also mentioned that we do interviews, we make calls, we call them, we discuss with them, and even more we can visit them on site, and we will understand more in the projects. Yeah.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think the first thing we look at in a white paper are the people. We want to know their track record. Have they worked in this space before? Or have they actually exited previous projects in a similar space or something that's analogous? I think we're also very interested in partnerships and advisors. Who is advising the project? To some degree, those names provide credentials to whether the project is also seen by others. To be honest with you, and I think this is probably true for everyone on the panel, for any project that we advise on or we invest in, most of the time we're talking to our friends. We get to know each other, we share deal flow, we share projects. We at Kenetic, for example, are very collaborative when it comes to advising. And so we love to co-advise with our friends who also see things from perhaps a different angle. This type of kind of group due diligence when thinking about people and evaluating who's on the team and who's advising, it goes a long way to help us understand if this is a project that we want to work on. Second, I know that one of the things that came up was, does this project create value with blockchain? Does it even need blockchain? Does it even need a token? I think those are good questions to ask before diving into, should we do an ICO? In some cases, we advise projects to raise an equity round and build some first form of a product to see if there is value creation, even with a test net before even considering doing an ICO. And in our opinion, when you actually do an ICO and you do some form of distribution of the token, ideally you're offering utility at the time at which you're saying this is a utility token. I know that sounds novel, maybe weird, but this is something that we believe in. So those are two things that we think about.
Okay, I agree with them. In most cases, we cannot see too much difference just based on white paper. And in most cases, we need to further make a face-to-face conversation with the entrepreneur. And but if you just ask what we emphasize in a white paper, we need to say first we want to know what he's doing. So from white paper, we can have a basic impression, and we judge from our own experience whether the direction is correct or not. So then we simply judge whether the past experience is matching for this direction. So the white paper cannot supply too much information.
So
I
now,
think there's one point I want to highlight is also,
Sure,
I
sure.
think, governance, which the previous panel also talked about. So one key thing I would look out for in white paper is, does it have proper governance? How long are the tokens locked in for the teams, for the advisors, to make sure that the long-term interest is actually aligned with, token holders? So that's a key aspect.
so governance is also very important. Okay, now we move on to the second question. What benefits do you think VC or incubator can bring to projects when they can raise funds directly?
I can go first. I think the role of incubator kind of changed a little bit, right? So before you would say it's very difficult for them to get funding, to connect to the right people. Right now, with the emergence of ICO, a lot of projects with an idea, they can raise money, a lot of money very quickly. But I think to do it right, pre-ICO stage, you want to be connected to the right advisors, right investors who are there with you for the long term. So I think that also relates to the previous panel, that you don't just take money from anyone. You want to take money from people who are supporting you throughout, right? And who sees the vision that you're seeing. So that's pre-ICO. I think post-ICO, there's a role that incubators could play as well, because for blockchain companies, projects, the whole cycle kind of being reversed, right? So you get money at a very early stage. Instead of being exposed to a limited number of investors, you are exposed to thousands and tens of thousands of token holders, right? You are obligated to keep them posted, keep them interested, make sure they know what you're doing. That takes a lot of effort and energy. And to a point, I feel it's distracting, right? So I feel the core team should focus more on building the product, meeting the project milestones, but instead, they're touring around, attending all sorts of conferences, and that's distracting for the team. So I think those are the things they can outsource to incubators or other providers. Say, for example, that's the reason why for LongHash, we are trying to build a global network of incubators, right? So far we've got 3, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Tokyo. We plan to get up to 9 by end of the year. So we hope to provide a global network of support for companies, portfolio companies that our investors have invested in, so that they can outsource some of those community engagement. Instead of hiring a full team in each of those locations, they can get plugged into the network support and just kind of quickly organize meetups or events to update their token holders. So that way, the core team can focus on building the solutions, which is what matters at the end of the day, right? There's only so much interest you can generate through talking. But at the end of the day, the beauty of blockchain projects is everybody can see is how much you're progressing and what's the quality of your code. So I think the role of incubators have changed of sorts.
Okay, I think I can answer this question from 3 aspects. Firstly, venture capital definitely gives more than just money. Literally speaking, we can give all of the resources needed except for your CEO. It means we can give you help for branding, for media, and for community. And one thing worth noticing is that Node Capital also organize united recruitment for our portfolio. And I think talents are the most needed results in blockchain industry. Secondly, I think the experience is very important because we are fighting in the frontier. So we are keen with the market change. We can provide our experience and latest knowledge to our entrepreneurs. And third is endorsement, since the return of our portfolio is quite high. So joining our portfolio means a kind of endorsement, and it's very helpful for future branding. I think so.
For us, we think that right now, most of the community and also for the supporter, the backers, actually follow influencers, and basically it's follow the crowd and the KOL. So most of the people who actually try to influence the backers and give the false informations. It's created a lot of 90% of failures and as well scammers in the market. So for example, if the project or the founder team itself can find VC or can find incubators who actually back them since from the start. So it create more belief as well as like can lead the backers, community members actually go through the right path and they can choose the right project to support in. That's the first roles of VC as like very important leaders and like KOL for the investment. Secondly, as I mentioned about the regulations, different countries have different regulations. Mostly the local VC and the local funds actually understand and have the connections better than the project itself, because the project mostly will want to expand globally. And if they have the support from different VC backgrounds, as well as like alliance on global network, it will help them to create the benefit from understand the nature of the supporter or the community in that country. And third, it will be a lot of like as an incubator, we have the team for technical development. Most of the incubator have the innovation center, whereby the project, when the technology got outdated or they need to have support from not only for the money as well as for the technology support, the incubator and the VC can introduce or they can help them to update it with the market.
I think well, it's interesting to see the table has turned. So for now, our VC incubator has to pitch ourselves to the startups just to explain why you need us and why we should be here in the room. So I think basically I can just give some more insights from the Vietnamese market in terms of Vietnamese market. This is what I also shared with John before when we met in Korea. And still, I think the situation hasn't changed a lot. So a lot of people might ask, so why, we have been trying to position Vietnam in the global blockchain map. So we have a lot of what it takes. So we have good development, we have affordable costs, we have, entrepreneurs here, and we have, like geopolitical stability. So a lot of things that are very imperative for a successful business. Yet, in blockchain industry, still, we haven't got those what we call who might connect the dots. So it means that it doesn't mean that if you have a good development team that's going to secure business success. You still need a lot of people who can talk the language of other stakeholders. You still need, let's say in Vietnam at the moment, we still don't have a lot of blockchain focused incubator or fund who can really take the risk and we can really help build up the capacity for blockchain startups in Vietnam. So we have lots of those people who might come in and might have interest in Vietnam as a development hub. But when it comes to long-term, let's say investment or long-term incubation or something further down the road of how much they should invest in this, I still don't see such commitment yet. So, I mean, this question this is like what we have been experiencing so far, and what I've been doing so far is that we are trying to get more people interested in this space, but we also want more people who can connect the dots and can really kind of elevate the ecosystem. Because at the end of the day, if we don't have those VC incubators as part of the ecosystem, that's not going to help us in the long run, and I still don't see how we can grow this sustainably. So it's a country story as well. And since I've been in this space for 2 years in Vietnam, since the time when people just talk about Bitcoin, and since the time when people just haven't really talked anything about blockchain until now, when blockchain is so hyped, when we have continuous conferences where people talk more about this. Still in the last 2 years, I mean, things haven't moved a lot except for the development. So I guess that's where you can see the big picture. And still, of course, I mean, we will still all need you here just to support us. And we welcome everyone else here coming to Vietnam to explore opportunities, but also to give us a hand in building the ecosystem.
Well, thank you for having us. I'm based in Hong Kong, so I also come from an environment where there's, I would say, a deep amount of support from traditional finance and investments, but I think we're still building our own, I guess you could say, blockchain technology ecosystem, if you will. I'd love to see Hong Kong grow more in that way. To answer your question, though, with respect to what a VC or an advisor can offer, I think the number one thing are introductions. And so what it comes down to are who are the people who can most help the project? Well, certainly money and investors. The second are partnerships, potentially other advisors, certainly covering other functional areas. And then also service providers. And I think this goes to what we've heard so far, the need for help with everything from community development and support, PR, certainly technology to some degree. So one of the things that advisors can help you do is not only think about who can help you get intros to those people, but also what do they need to hear and quickly, because I think we're all searching for more time and attention, how to reach those targets in a way that flips the switch and says, yes, they can work with you and they can work with you quickly. So that would be the number one thing. In addition to that, it's always very helpful to have a sounding board, especially because your particular business has different challenges. It would be great to say that every blockchain project has the same variety of challenges as you're doing a token sale. The reality is every project is different, and to have advisors who think very inventively and fluidly instead of prescribing a very kind of condensed cookbook on exactly how to do an ICO. Anyone who tells you that there is a tried and true process that doesn't change every month is lying to you. Don't believe them. You need to have a very fluid way of thinking about these things.
All right, it takes too long. I almost forgot the questions. So let's talk about the VC and how we can help the VC to invest in projects. It come back to the previous question I answered is about the human. Because as incubators and service providers, we stay along with the projects like every day, and we do a duty, start from open a complaint for them, start out the foundation with the complaint, and do a legal opinion afterwards, PR marketing. There's a lot of stuff where our team have to work closely. We are like an outsourced team for those projects to work together. So after the whole thing is done, when we move to the investor parts, token sales part, if you are confident enough, say, all right, this project is solid because we have to work with them for that long, and we are confident to present this project to our investor, to our VCs, and ourselves can be a brand. We can build a reputation for these projects. So, and we do a duty for those projects, and VC investors will feel more comfortable on that. Meanwhile, we have different entities like a blockchain foundation in Singapore. We also work closely with like NUS, different universities, have different courses, which is going to be start in Singapore on July. So we will have our own education center in Asia, because currently we have Draper in States, but in Asia we don't really have a center for education and mass market and for the for everyone. We just have different talks and have listened to everybody. We are a bit confused. There's a lot of universities like Stanford, MIT, Oxford. They have online courses, offline courses. But in Asia, we are trying to push all this industry moving forward, connecting the dots with different big universities, governments, and so on. And I hope while we are doing this, we can help the industry moving in a healthy way. And while this industry is getting more and more competitive, and for the projects, normally and starting, while you have the white paper, you can raise up the money. But now you have to really have something while you goes to an investor. Maybe you have the prototype, demos. It's getting more and more tough. So in each of the project now, if they're solid enough, you will see a lot of scientists, a lot of PhDs in the projects. I think it's a really good sign because we involve the most high IQ person in the world and developing the technology in this industry. And for blockchain and for ICO, from my understanding, it's just another vehicle of finance because I'm from finance background as well. So, but the investor who invests on the ICO, when I first know about this, I feel like this is miracle because when we invest in the money into the ICO, we see nothing about the projects. We can't visualize, we can't touch it. It's purely crypto and it's not physical stuff. So some of the project they even start from very scratch, and people are willing to invest millions of dollars into it. So actually, the investors are deeply believe in the projects, in the team that are investing on dreams. So our job, while we're doing education, while we're doing incubators, we are just trying to make people's dreams come true. That's all we need to do.
Very
Can
insightful.
Yeah, I think one value that we haven't mentioned is really, actually you mentioned partnerships. I just want to add more on that, right? Because the current use case for blockchain is really cryptocurrencies, right? Trading and cryptocurrency. So that's it. There's a lot of potential in this thing, but we haven't seen many other real life applications, right? So I think for blockchain companies that have done successful ICOs, that's just step one. You're gonna need all your help to realize the vision that you have, right? Say for example, if you're developing a trade financing solution, you're gonna have to work with the incumbents out there, the banks, the current logistic platforms to test out your solutions. You're gonna need introductions to those partners to test out your solutions, right? If you're developing, say, a payment solution, you're going to have to work with, like what Ripple is doing, you're going to have to work with West Union or, all those incumbents. But a lot of incumbents are sitting on the outset, right? They're waiting to be convinced. So you need people who come from that side and who can help you to make the introduction, to bridge the gap. So that's one thing we're doing. We're signing up mentors who come with, say, 20 years experience in trade financing or ex-head of, global markets and HSBC. So with those people, if you convince them, they can help you to make introductions to the institutions, to test out your solution, to source for future customers. So to me, I feel that that's a really big value to blockchain companies.
Very insightful. I guess we are running out of time today, so we cannot have more questions. So basically, to summarize, for incubator and VC, what they are providing is not just money. They are providing all the resources, services, and partnership to help the projects grow. Maybe you guys can look for these professionals after the panel discussion to discuss with them more. Yeah, thank you.